3 people were in the twin-engined Lapwing aircraft that crashed. Property tycoon Louis Simon and Mrs. April Hammond were the passengers. They were killed. The pilot, Edward Cummings, unsuccessful property developer, survived. The cause of that crash is one of the questions that the jury must answer on this, the last day of the case of Cummings versus Simon, which is being held in Fulchester Crown Court.
Are you recovered, Mrs. Simon?
Yes, my lord.
And you're quite sure that you feel capable of continuing with your evidence?
Yes.
Very well. I would remind you that you are still on oath, Mr. Ingrams.
Mrs. Simon, yesterday you described to us in lurid detail Mr. Cummings having what you described as one of his turns.
Yes.
Now, that description was pure fantasy, wasn't it?
No.
You are on oath, Mrs. Simon.
I know that. Look, I described exactly what happened, exactly how he looked.
Have you? Well, how many of these turns have you witnessed?
Several.
1, 2, 3?
I don't know exactly.
Approximately?
Well...
5, 10, 20?
I've told you, I don't know.
Well, did Mr. Cummings have one of these fits every time you met him?
No.
Every alternate time you met him?
No. I saw him have maybe 6 or 7.
Ah, 6 or 7.
Yes.
6 or 7 attacks in the whole of the time that you've known Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Now, how long have you known Mr. Cummings?
I don't know, about 5 years.
Well, that works out at a little over 1 attack a year.
Yes.
Now, these turns lasted, I think you said, just a few seconds.
Yes.
Mrs. Simon, you must have watched out very carefully for these alleged minor epileptic attacks.
I didn't watch carefully. They just happened. I saw them.
6 or 7 of them?
Yes.
In 5 years?
Maybe there were more. I can't remember.
You can't remember how many you saw Mr. Cummings have, but you can remember exactly what they were like in great detail.
You would if you'd seen them.
I don't think I would, Mrs. Simon, because I don't think you ever witnessed Mr. Cummings suffer from anything more than a passing indisposition, if that.
I saw him go all peculiar.
Why did you associate these alleged turns with epilepsy?
What?
Well, if, as you say, Mr. Cummings did suffer from these attacks in the way that you describe, why did you think that they were epileptic in origin?
What else could they be?
Indigestion, stomachache, a hangover, boredom, perhaps. A dozen explanations. Why epilepsy?
I can't remember. Something I read, I think.
A clinical description of a petit mal absent, perhaps?
No. Look, I just can't remember.
The point is, isn't it, Mrs. Simon, that an accusation of migraine or stomachache wouldn't have affected Mr. Cummings' business career, would it?
Mr. Cummings only had a business career at all because of my husband.
And you were determined to take even that away from him?
I thought the shareholders had every right to know the sort of man who was manipulating their money.
Oh, I see. So you acted purely from principle?
Yes.
Public-spirited, altruistic?
Ted Cummings is a liar and a killer. I thought people ought to know it.
I put it to you, Mrs. Simon, that you acted out of malice. You hated Mr. Cummings because you saw in him, rightly or wrongly, a cause for the breakdown of your marriage.
Louis would have come back to me.
I suggest to you that all your evidence in this court, all your fantasies and inventions, are nothing more than malicious lies.
They're the truth. Look at him. He knows they are.
No more questions, my lord.
You do wish to re-examine Mr. Parsons?
Yes, indeed, my lord. Mrs. Simon, have you lied to this court?
No.
Has your evidence been motivated by malice?
Justice. That's all I ask for.
It is still your contention that Mr. Cummings crashed his plane either because he was suffering from an epileptic attack or because he wished to commit suicide.
Or maybe it was a combination of the two.
Now, you witnessed several of Mr. Cummings' attacks.
I did.
Now, what grounds do you suggest for Mr. Cummings wishing to commit suicide?
Well, he was in bad financial trouble, wasn't he? He had to go crawling first to me and then to Louis to try and get money. Then Louis turned up with that little slut April Hammond. Louis wasn't interested in the deal. He told me so. What else was left for Edward Cummings but suicide? And he couldn't even make a good job of that. He killed my husband.
Thank you, Mrs. Simon.
You may leave the witness box, Mrs. Simon.
My lord, the last witness for the defence is Stephen Hammond.